Hey, Shalom Ahchyam, Shalom, giving all praises, glory and honor to Yahweh Bashim Shai, Bashim Akakwadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders, great millstone for teaching us his truth and citations to the sincere Ahchyam and Al-Qathami. Listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick on Lord's Will is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I wanted to go through a point that's been on my mind because at our last camp last week we were speaking about children and going into a lot of the unrighteous behavior in regards to our people, and a lot of a lot of our children, when you look at them today, they are duplicate copies of unrighteous behavior, right? And the scriptures go into essentially how to train up a child in the way that they should go. And when they're old, they don't depart from it. So they don't depart from the ways of our forefathers, right? But when you look at the ways a lot of our children are growing up today, they're unruly, they're uncultured, they are untempered, they are basically very, very, a lot of them are very, very mischievous, right? And I kind of wanted to do this as a sentiment of comfort, especially for brothers, you know, um, especially for brothers who don't have children, right? One of the things is to hope for is to hope to have children, not in the way that the world is going, but something also to hope for in the kingdom of heaven is to be able to enjoy your children in the kingdom, because when you look at the way society is going today, it's not only a war for your mind, it's a war for their minds also, you know. And I say that because when you look at the public school system, the school system, I'm sorry, but when you look at the kind of content they are pushing upon the children, it's essentially to rebel against the Most High, Yahweh Bashim Shai, and his ways, his laws, statutes, his commandments, and the kind of people that they have indoctrinating your children, right? And one of the things when I say that, quickly came to my mind was an account in Chronicles with one of the kings of Judah named Joash. And there was a priest during that time named Jehoiada who was responsible for making sure that he was cultivated properly. So just to show the indoctrination is important, but what the children are being learned is also important as well. And it's a war for their minds. You have so much worry in this society, who the kind of care they're being placed upon. Children are being offered as offerings to, certain gods. A lot of women leave their children in nobody's care, or they've been so beguiled by the serpent, right? Through different philosophies and fruits, philosophies known as feminism, in becoming a me type of character, and to disregard the importance of having children. You believe that they've been taught that okay, there's more to you than just, having children. Don't do that. There's more to you than just having that. So what do? They've been taught to delete their children in the womb, right? So these are all worries, when it comes to the society, because a lot of, you want to plant your seed in good ground. I would say it in a parabolic sense. You want to plant your seed in good ground. You don't want to just have, children with anybody, right? Especially in a place like this where a lot of the ground is already corrupted, right? So I did quite a bit of rambling, but this is just a hope, especially for brothers who don't have children, right? Let me start off with Romans, and I sincerely pray that this lesson is edifying. This is Romans chapter 8, verse 24. And it says, "For we are saved by hope, but hope that is seen is not hope. For what a man seeth, what doth he yet hope for?" Verse 25. "But if we hope for that which we see not, then do we with patience wait for it," right? So, I'm reading this, to open to remember that, part of the kingdom of heaven is and proper rulership on the planet Earth is to have not just, children, but children that's going to be basically they're going to be all right, because when you have children, your manhood and your masculinity is so, like, it's so dulled in this society. It's a shame for a man. It's a shame for a man to have lots of children in this society. He's seen as a deadbeat. He's seen as um irresponsible. You know, like when you think about how things were, the shift between the ancient times and now, you know, I forgot which woman it was, one of Jacob's wives, but then she brought one of her handmaids. I believe it was Rachel, if I'm not mistaken, because I believe her womb was shut up, if I'm not mistaken. And then she brought a handmaid, and then Jacob went in onto the handmaid to essentially bring forth um, more children, more sons, especially. You know what I'm saying? So it shows you this the strong shift between the ancient times, the ancient way of thinking, and it is now. And when you read scriptures like in Isaiah 60 about children are going to be, one shall become 1,000, and a little one a strong nation. You know what I'm saying? Like, children are going to be good. They're going to be in a good state of mind, but now they're basically a prey. You can't enjoy them. As a matter of fact, I believe that's in the curses actually. Let me see. One second. Okay, here it is. This is Deuteronomy 28, verse 41. And it says, "Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity." And that's something that's happened to us. We're not able to actually enjoy, your children. You send them off to school, excuse me, you know, they spend how many hours? 6 to 8 hours in these schools, and then they're being properly uncultivated. They're really trained to be more rebellious against the Most High, right? Not to actually love the Most High. They're not being taught that. You know what I'm saying? Like the difference when you read about in Tobit, the fourth chapter, you know, Tobit was giving his son Tobias spiritual game on how to please the Most High. Keep these precepts in mind after I pass. The scriptures say, "He that teacheth his son grieveth the enemy." And though his father died, it was like he was not even dead, because he basically made a duplicate copy of himself, right? And you saw how, when you read the book of Tobit, you saw how Tobit acted during the days of his time in captivity, right? So he was giving his son spiritual game, but in this place, and then you have to worry about the person you have children with. So it's all worry, you know right? When you have children, you're thinking about their welfare, so on and so forth, what they eat, who, or even who they hang out with, right? And children really and truly are a blessing. Where's that one? Psalms 127, verse 3. And it says, "Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward." As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so children are of the youth. Verse 5. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. Right. So it's a blessing to have lots of children, but it's seen as a that's how far our women are gone. Because it's not seen as a blessing if a man has a lot of children. It's seen as a, like that guy, that celebrity Nick Cannon. He's, a lot of our women shame a guy like that for having lots of children. You know what I'm saying? But then again, when you look at the population crisis, I'm sorry, the birth rate crisis, and you look at Canada, the US, UK, these Scandinavian countries, Japan, South Korea, you know what I'm saying, Germany, when you look at the population, they're all on the decline. They're all on the decline. Because you see how important it is to follow the Lord's way, because really and truly we're supposed to be fruitful and multiply. That's really point blank the way how things are supposed to be. But now that has to fulfill other prophecies, like women, like it says in Ezra's about women. Let me get it. Second Ezra 16. And verse 33. The virgin shall mourn having no bridegrooms, and the women shall mourn having no husbands, and the daughter shall mourn having no helpers. Right? That's the what's going on here. So you have a lot of these women growing up now where they don't actually have husbands. A lot of them are not getting married, right? A lot of women are actually, even the ones that have children now, there's trends online where a lot of women regret motherhood, right? So this is another reason, this place has to collapse, right? Where was I gonna go? Bear with me. Oh, Sirach. There we go. Sirach 16, verse 1. And it says here, desire not a multitude of unprofitable children, neither delight in ungodly sons. Though they multiply, rejoice not in them, except the fear of the Lord be with them. Trust not thou in their life, neither respect their multitude. For one that is just is better than 1,000, and better it is to die without children and to have them that are ungodly, right? So, the scripture is saying it's actually better to die without them rather than to have one and they're like, you have multiple Keishas and Ray Rays running around, and they're basically they're basically uncultured. They're causing a ruckus in the society. They're causing problems in the convenience store. They don't know how to behave themselves when no parents are not around. They're undisciplined. You know what I'm saying? They're gluttonous. They're drunkards. They're just sloppy, like Eli's sons. You know what I'm saying? They're not what's that word looking for? They're not upstanding in citizens, and that's what nobility really goes into. It is having a standard, and a lot of our children, behave like degenerates, and that's one of the things to sigh and cry about, because it's like when you read Ezekiel 9:4, it says slaves utterly, maids and little children, right? So a lot of these children are going to get judged, for the way they treated the prophets, the way they disobedient to parents, spiritual parents, the apostles and elders, you know what I mean? So a lot of them, need to perish, right? So let me read verse 3 again. Trust not thou in their life, neither respect their multitude, for one that is just is better than 1,000, and better it is to die without children than to have them that are ungodly, right? So, it's a I personally love children, but when you look at the society and the way it's going, it's like, damn, man, I can't, and that's another thing too. The court system, a lot of the court system favors women, right? So, it's hell. It's hell. It's hell. Scriptures say, we don't have a continuing city, but we seek one to come, right? Because, how much more is to have children and to have a husband and a wife that agree. Feel me? Those are things that are beautiful, and that's something that the kingdom, will have. But here, you know, it's hell, man. But let me end off with this here. This is Matthew 19, verse 27, and it says, "But Peter and then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And Yahushua said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, which ye have followed me in the regeneration when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye shall also sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And every one that have forsaken houses and brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall receive and inherit everlasting life." Right? So, and part of that is to even be able to, enjoy, the things that we gave up on, because we're living in an environment that's not a healthy place to have children, right? I remember I had this conversation with a brother, my brother, and he was kind of skeptical about bringing another one into the world, and and he didn't even know the truth at the time, but he knew something in the environment was off. It wasn't like, this is not a healthy place to bring forth children. And then there's the economic part of it too. The price of things, it's pricey. Just to, that's another trend that's going on right now, where you have adults coming together to buy a house, just to buy one house. It takes like how there's a saying, it takes two to tango. It takes four to tango now. You know what I mean? So it's not a healthy environment for children, because I'll never forget this. There was that parade that happened in NYC years ago, and you had the alphabet community. They said, we're coming after your children. So that's another thing you have to worry about, especially if you're a man of the Lord, and you actually have children. These are things you think about, because you're not going to trust anybody with your children, and those are the kinds of people that are being placed in the public food systems. So that's pretty much the point. I guess I just wanted to read this as a comfort, for brothers who may not have children, and think about it sometimes. But when you look at when you see all these prophecies and like unfolding, and you think about children, it's like, damn, man, it's like, this is not a healthy place, to bring forth children, right? So anyways, I just thought I would, discuss this real quick. Lord's will, as always, this lesson was just quick and edifying. As I give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Until next time, I say, Shalom.